style or something really different. That might, but they got to just stop trying to hang on to those IPs.
Yeah, that's just bad.
That's right.
Bad.
All right. Well, we are back with COFOH Live Undead back at Mutiny Cafe. And I am here with Daniel Smurf Sharner from 5280 Geek.
Correct.
And then Troy Fluhr from Rocky Mountain Geek Tank.
We usually drop the first part because we're lazy, but if you want to find us, you've got to actually put in the Rocky Mountain part.
Yeah.
You're going to find a specialty place that does the little vape tanks, which I don't understand the connection to the word geek with that. But they have a really cute lady in a bikini, so that's why they're at the top when you search Geek Tank.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
12th one down.
Yeah, because you just have a tank.
Yeah, I tried
a
to do
logo.
the bikini thing, but that just got us kicked off Facebook.
Put the bikini on the tank. Have you ever tried that? Would that work?
Well, if I had like the howitzer part, I could have the tank turret be a tank top.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There you go. That'd be nice.
That works well.
Yeah, that works pretty well. So, Daniel, do you Smurf, because you're blue in this light.
I feel rather Johnny Mnemonic-y.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. Like I said,
unique skin condition as a child.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, unique. Yeah, it's like too much ultraviolet. Clearly. Yeah, you do remind me of a young Dolph Lundgren.
Thank you. I've got Dolph Lundgren. I've got Matt Damon a couple of times. Kiefer Sutherland usually is the go-to.
Oh yeah,
you're younger Kiefer Sutherland.
The older version of the lead kid in Monster Squad.
Oh,
he's the most famous, clearly, because I know his name.
Yes. I love Monster Squad. You have to pay for that on Amazon Prime. It's not even free. You have to pay for that.
That's weird. I was just watching it. It's free.
Damn it.
All right. You must not.
I must not have it.
It's not free for you.
Not free for me.
Yeah, you need to get your own.
I need to stop pirating it.
Yeah, there you go. That's why.
No,
yeah.
I run 5280 Geek. I am the owner, runner. I also do our own weekly podcast, Weekend Geek Update, every Tuesday, where I have my table of companions and we review the latest in pop culture, news, events. There's Red, Aaron, and Tao, of course.
Nice.
So, we're all over, and we'll be going to New York Comic Con in a couple of weeks.
Oh, excellent.
So we will be covering that. So cons across the country, interviews, whatever.
Yeah.
We get all sorts of stuff going on.
That's fantastic. What about Geek Tank?
We don't do anything.
You don't do anything.
That's not true. Every convention that I go to,
yes.
I see the back of your
We
jersey.
are the Geeks in Green.
Yes.
You see our green jerseys at conventions.
Yeah, they're usually in line at the Wendy's.
They usually are.
Yeah.
The food truck. Last con that I was at, I ran into them and I'm like, oh, Geek Tank. There are like a couple of people in front of me at the food truck. I'm like, gosh.
Nice.
And we take forever.
You do.
There's a lot of choices.
There are a lot of
choices on those menus. Street tacos. Yeah.
It's hard to beat.
But yeah, there's 3 other co-hosts. We picked up a new co-host because we figured if we add a co-host every year, eventually we'll be so gigantic that you can't not watch us because we'll be everywhere.
That's good way.
So originally it was myself and Guy Davis, and then we added Chelsea Kramer to the group.
Okay.
And then now we have her best friend, who's stalling for time, Emily.
And
okay.
And she would have been great here, but she's in Hawaii. But she loves werewolves. She loves horror films.
Nice.
She even has a tattoo of a werewolf. I
Nice.
was trying to convince her to fly back to Hawaii, apparently.
Yeah, since we're not, paying for the flight.
Right.
Yeah.
But we hit all the local conventions. Like I believe we have Mile High Con coming up next month.
Mile High Con, which is the longest running literary con in Colorado.
52 years
Nice.
now.
Yeah,
something way up there.
They're amazing, and they have a unique system where if you get a table with their con, they only take a percentage of what you've earned. So you don't have to buy a table up front. This is what I earned.
Percentage of sales.
Yeah, percentage of sales. So if you do well, they do well. If you suck, well then
Yeah.
writing's on the wall.
So you really have to have your accounting down. Yeah. Good luck, creatives. Unless you have Jeannie and Brad, you are screwed.
What is that? Is that an abacus? Yes, it is.
So tell us a little bit more about your backgrounds. Smurf, like how you got into doing podcasts. Were you always a fan? Are you creative? And also, like, where did you grow up? How did you kind of enter like pop culture? And more specifically, for the purposes of this show, horror.
I'm actually a Wisconsin native,
Oh, nice.
so Colorado is not my home.
Okay.
Grew up on the West Coast, or East Coast, excuse me. Dad was a pilot for United, so I went all over. I've
cool.
traveled the world. But in high school, GW, landed here, went to CU, and then kind of aerated out from that. But on-air personality for 103.5 The Fox, 106.7 KBPI, 93.3 KTCL. So
Cool.
I was on air as a radio personality, and that is how I got into the broadcasting side. So I have a degree both of broadcast and marketing from CU here in Boulder.
Nice.
So, but before I did that, right after I graduated high school and in my college years, I owned a comic book store.
Oh.
So I've been collecting comic books since the age of 8. And it's a rather extensive collection at this point. Brett and Jeannie has seen some of my gems that I have pulled out for events that I'm very proud of my collection. It's a long time in the making. But when I was younger in Wisconsin, I would go down to like the corner shop where you had the old school turnstiles, and you would pick out, the creepy or the eerie comics with the Crypt Keeper and all of that. And that was my initial introduction into horror. So after that, every Sunday, without fail, there was something of a horror nature on television. And of course, my hero, Vincent Price.
Yes.
I mean, that if there is one person that I can say that it was without a doubt my initial introduction into horror, it's Vincent Price and then Abbott and Costello.
Oh, nice.
Because at the time when Abbott and Costello were doing their movies and their shows, they were the highest paid actors in Hollywood. So that's how come they could get Bela Lugosi. That's how come they could have Lon Chaney and all of these horror icons.
Yeah.
That on Sunday, that was how I spent Sunday with my dad. We would watch horror. And Vincent Price, Dr. Herbst, oh my God, that is the most frightening thing that you can think of as a child. Because, I mean, Vincent Price is already creepy. And then add this decrepit, monster that he comes out of that. And it's like, oh my God. But that was all it took. And after that, totally hooked onto horror. And then after that, I mean, since then, comic book conventions since the early 90s, then founded 5280 Geek, and now we tour the country doing different, conventions, interviews with national and local celebrities, the podcast, of course. It varies back and forth, voiceover work, I'm all, independent film. You and I have actually had, lots of conversations.
Oh, yeah.
I did an independent film with Tony Todd, who's the Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing quite like sitting at a bar, having a conversation about whiskey and vinyl.
Nice.
Than with Tony Todd.
Oh, yeah.
Brett was there. Brett was there for this evening. They did a screening for Candyman. And Tony and I had already worked a couple of times already for the independent films that we've done together.
Yeah.
So
what are those independent films? So we can look them up on Amazon Prime because we have accounts.
Ghostblade Productions is who it is under. It will be premiering soon. I don't know what the finishing title will be.
Nice. So we can look it up.
You can look it up. Look it up. It's easier that way because Jimmy Drain, who is the writer and the producer and the director, he's changed the title a couple of times because of legalities and people investing. So you know how that goes.
Yeah, it sucks.
It's a pain in the ass. But Tony and I have hung out extensively, so he comes into town for the screening at the Alamo, and I elbow Brett. I'm like, you want to go hang out with the Candyman? Brett's like,
fuck yeah.
He's like,
that's what
whatever. I'll hang out with the Candyman. So I walk up to Tony, and of course Tony just gives me this big old hug, and in the Tony Todd voice, "How you doing?"
Oh, nice. Yes.
So we sit there and we have
Yeah.
this lengthy conversation about vinyl and whiskey and Blanton's, because at the time Alamo was serving Blanton's bourbon, which is one of my favorite bourbons. So, and Tony's an aficionado of whiskey, so it was a magical night, and Brett was there to witness it. But it was
Here's the +1.
Oh my God, Brett just sat. It was like
He just sat.
he did. It was like Brett was in the sidecar. He was
You're
Robin.
Robin tonight.
It was the Batman from the 70s.
Feel free to touch me, Tony.
That's right.
Anyway,
Because you're going to park the bat cycle, but you're still going to eject out of it and park next to it.
yeah,
That's all you know.
Yeah,
Just to see the feature.
that's
But it was a good
fantastic.
thing. But I have been a horror nut ever since. I mean, the one horror film that, if I'm going to say a horror film that truly scared me, the original Hellraiser.
Excellent. Good choice.
I mean, that one really, for just what it was, and then Serpent of the Rainbow.
Yeah.
That was another one at the time when it landed in the 90s. Nobody else is doing that kind of horror. And it being based on loosely on a true story was another one. Was just like, because Jacob's Ladder kind of flubbed in the 90s. Everyone acclaims it as being such a good horror film. But when you look at the 90s and compare Jacob's Ladder and Serpent Under the Rainbow, Serpent just kicks its ass. The production value for horror, for story, for cinematography, that whole story is just.
Yeah, I always attribute something like Jacob's Ladder as more of a psychological thriller.
Exactly.
Just kind of, somebody just breaking down after experiencing such,
PTSD.
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely.
traumas during war.
Mm-hmm.
So in and of itself is horrific, but it definitely has its nods and its tropes to horror. But as far as like a Wes Anderson, film based in voodoo, that's to me it's very visually. Well, I would want to say it's arresting, but to me it's there's a lot more like physical props and special effects going on right there that I find a little bit more endearing, probably more so than some of the later Nightmare on Elm Street.
Well, and when you look at what Bill Pullman did, because I mean, at the time, all you had seen him in was comedies. He had done My Son's Psycho Ex-Boyfriend, where he breaks his finger, Spaceballs, and everything else. For him to come out and do this dramatic and this intense of a role, and just the whole creepy vibe that you get from the voodoo, it is just so well played, so well done.
And it's roughly about the same time as Spaceballs.
It is.
So there's a nice sense of
It is just one huge pendulum swing.
Yeah.
I remember correctly, that's the one where they go out and hear the scream.
Yes.
Connecting Spaceballs to that again too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it is all connected. Hitting the pendulum. Yeah, it's all.
I have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
Since you're one of the few people I know that's seen Dr. Fives.
Yeah.
Like that. I always thought there was this very loose homage to Dr. Fives done in the Saw movies because it was similar.
Oh.
You have a doctor who's trying to get revenge and he created all these traps just like the Saw Dr.
And
Fives.
see, and I can honestly see that because there is the one where you have the where the woman is tied up and he's got to go in there and save her before the sand runs out of the hourglass. And it is very reminiscent of Saw. And I think when the writer who passed away when he was doing, because I think he passed away in Saw 2?
I know it was early on.
He was early on, and when Saw 2 came out, and I honestly could see them going that route with Jigsaw and how he was constructing his traps that he would end up becoming like the Doctor. So I honestly think
with the female being taken into his wing.
yes, and the whole yes.
Yeah.
And he did, and when you look at him, he does have that opaque kind of feature that the Doctor had that Vincent Price pulled off so eloquently. And when you look at what he did, especially when all you can see is him in the carriage, and he's just the glasses and and the pasty scanning and just kind of creeps over and looks at it.
He just screams health.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Health
Eat a vegetable.
Yeah.
Just vitamin D.
Yeah.
Just something.
Well, and Tobin Bell was, the cancer man in X-Files.
Yeah.
The cigarette
The cigarette, the smoker.
Yeah. More so than the actual cigarette man.
You mean the Marlboro man?
Oh, well, no, I
No.
mean the actual cigarette
Oh,
man. The agent that was pulling all the strings.
Yes.
And I'm sure Sam Elliott would have been perfectly fine
Absolutely.
in that
Yes,
series.
he's burly.
He's burly, yeah. So, Troy,
Yes.
same question. I don't know if you remember it.
After following
I apologize.
No,
After following up that, I just want to say
Smurf
I was
is the smurfiest, long-winded Smurf there is.
I was going to say I was president of drum club in high school.
See? You're more popular than I was.
His resume is just so impressive. So I've kind of fell into podcasting by accident.
Okay.
There's this antique place called the Brass Armadillo,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a live show that focused on antiques, and it was half geek, half not. And they said, well, we kind of want to make two shows, one that focuses mostly on geek stuff and one that's not geek stuff. And they said, hey, do you want to come be a part of this? I'm like, yeah, sure. I've got a background in improv comedy. I'll come join you. And like, what other shows would you think we'd do? I'm like, oh, how about a show based off of the 70s game show called Liars Club? Because you have all these antiques. Let's just grab some random antiques. I'll get some improv fellas. We'll sit here and make up stories about it. And the people watching have to guess which is the right story.
Nice.
And they gave away gift cards for that.
How cluish.
I know. But we kind of rode out of that geek show and started doing more conventions. My friend who's amazingly knowledgeable about Star Trek jumped in, and we cover everything geeky, which I think's both our strong point and weak point. So it's really hard to find us, because if you look up Star Trek shows, you're going to find 1,000 Star Trek shows before you get to ours, because we're not specifically Star Trek. And if you look up horror shows, you're going to find 1,000 other horror shows before you get to us, because we cover everything. So
when with your improv background
Yes.
and everything, so when they tried to, perfect example, the new Zombieland coming up.
Yes.
So when they try to infuse comedy into horror, how do you feel about that? Do you feel like they're cheapening the art? I mean, because that is like the one thing that I always tutor back and forth on. Because when you look at like Evil Dead, that was dead set to be a horror film. Absolutely. And then it was so bad and so cheesy that, we're just going to embrace the cheesy and cross over to the comedy.
right, and then the part two was basically a remake of part one.
Yes.
They embraced it. It really, because there's so many different types of horror films, and so many different types of comedy films. It depends on how you incorporate it. Have you seen It Chapter 2 yet?
No, I've been. My film reviewers got it though.
The use of humor in that is fantastic. But it's not a comedy.
It's not a comedy.
No, but
they use comedy.
it's an adult. But how? Because when I talked to my film reviewer for 5280, he was telling me that it is. You honestly feel like it's the adult coping mechanism that all of us use when we're in an uncomfortable setting.
Absolutely.
So when you're looking at the first chapter one, and it's a different style of comedy because you're the kids that have no idea how to channel this, and then you have chapter two where adults have to use something humorous
to lighten the mood.
to distract themselves and to cope with just the brutality of what they're witnessing.
Yeah. If anything, those kids are probably healthier from using comedy in those adult traumas.
Right.
If you're just focused on the problem, it's going to result in more negative psychological trauma, probably to the point where you don't get a movie. They don't. None of them
They
show
just-
up. Nor
just
should
curl
they.
up in the corner.
Yeah. So
Tell me about the rabbit.
So one of the things too is you mentioned about Abbott and Costello. The
Yeah.
crossover of comedy and horror has a long history.
Very huge lineage.
Yeah, so it's actually pretty normal to have that transfer over. And usually you'll have some aspect of comedy in a pretty well balanced film that's telling a decent story. So like American Werewolf in London has a lot of comedy elements, Essentially, what they'll call that is more of a mode. It's a horror movie, and then the comedy, doesn't necessarily make it a comedy, but they use it as a mode, as an element. Yeah.
Because in American Werewolf in London, his whole conversations with his friend, and as the story progresses, he continues to degrade of his physical presence is just horrifying. You're like, oh my god.
London's a great example of how you can take a horror film, and by adding that, you add an extra layer of depth to it without making fun of the situation.
No.
Whereas Zombicide, that's a board game that I love. Zombieland is an example of laughing at itself and turning itself into its own joke. It's funny and it's fun to watch, but I wouldn't consider it horror necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more of like a horror veneer over top of the comedy. Whereas like Shaun of the Dead, it's that line in between it.
But Shaun of the Dead at the end is just tear-jerking. Because at the end, you basically watched systematically all of his friends just get wiped out.
Yeah.
And at the end, he comes out, and to find out on the other side from the group that they encountered, they're clones basically. Yeah, she's the only one that made it too. So the polar opposites absolutely made it. So
I think with that too, it's like Shaun of the Dead has amazing closure.
It does.
It takes you on this emotional ride. You really feel for the kids or for the people going through that ordeal, and then realize here's Sean's friend.
Leave my mom alone.
Yeah, everybody that even like Bill Nye was in there for a very brief time. And it's just like, oh my gosh, he actually felt for them.
That's the voice actor, not the science guy.
Correct.
Yes.
Right. I think both of them can save the world.
I think
they both could come together and maybe form their own.
I think one is probably
Voltron.
more musically inclined than the other.
Yeah, but one can do chemistry in the bathtub at home
and carry a fire extinguisher.
So anyway, segue to Breaking Bad. What do you think of the new movie? No, I'm kidding.
So what about Jesse Pinkman? What do you think?
Right, I know. Yeah. So
Jesse's not going back in the box.
Yeah. I've been in the box. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice.
That's a different podcast.
True. So it's like, where were you with that setup? And it's like, there's no setup. There's no follow through.
So with horror, since we're talking about different layers of horror film, that's one thing. How do you define horror films? Because as you mentioned earlier on about those psychological thrillers, those to me are still close enough to horror.
Correct.
I consider that if it's
I would think so. Yeah, I think everybody's going to have kind of their different interpretation. But when I first saw Jacob's Ladder, I thought it was straight up horror film. And I saw it when it came out, and I was a little kid. It's like, wow, this is damaging. I saw Silence of the Lambs. I thought that was a straight up horror movie. It was horrific, the things that were going on. And then later on there was a line of direct to DVD horror films based off of real life serial killers, and they were in the horror section, and I watched them. They were not of the quality of Silence of the Lambs, but they were gross.
The true crime stuff it's gnarly.
It's pretty gnarly. Whatever's embellished, because all that can be ever is historical fiction. Filmmakers are making decisions on set or in the script. It's like, well, we got to move this part here and there to
make a better story.
Make a better story to make it also coalesce in that 2-hour time frame. I took my girlfriend to see the Queen movie, Bohemian Rhapsody.
Yeah.
And it's just like, these things kind of happened, just not in that order.
And they skipped over the whole Highlander and CBS deal, which is a bit annoying. So
right there, she's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, it's historical fiction at best. That's what these biopics are. If you watch the Walk the Line movie, it's like, a lot of that's pushed and embellished to make it feel dramatic. The addiction part was real.
Joaquin Phoenix can't impersonate Johnny Cash, nor can Will Smith do, anything other
Johnny
than
Cash.
yeah,
Will Smith.
Will Smith.
Yeah. I love
However,
Will Smith as Will Smith.
Will
in
Smith
Men
does
in
Will
Black.
Smith so well that I'll watch Will Smith movies to see Will Smith.
Not After Earth.
No,
I never saw that one.
No.
Yeah, see, there you go.
I'll skip that one.
Yeah.
So bad.
Have you seen a movie called Senseless? It's like, because we were talking about horror films. That's one that's
I saw the comedy version named Senseless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
real brief. The
Penelope
plot is
Spears.
an American tourist gets kidnapped. If I remember correctly, the first thing they take away of his senses is his tongue. They burn his senses.
Oh
of his
no,
tongue.
I did not see
I did
this.
not see this.
They
Yeah.
broadcast it live, and they say, "Okay, we're going to take away one
Like
of
on
his senses
Facebook Live?
On Facebook Live.
Right, Facebook Live.
So we're going to take away one of
Plug.
his senses every day, unless if you pay us X amount of money." So they're blackmailing the world to not do that.
Mm.
However, people start writing them saying, "We'll pay you this much money if you go ahead and do the next one." So they're paying them to speed up the process while this guy is there. And every time he loses a sense, he has a flashback to his strongest memory to that sense.
Oh.
And I found it horrific in that it was believable.
Yeah.
So I could see this happening. And
Yeah.
it was one of those that it didn't get a good rating. It's not a
Yeah.
fantastic film, but the premise is really interesting. And I ended up watching it because on Netflix it's like recommended films, and then I saw the review and I got a really low rating. And I read it. It's like, this film is horrible and disgusting. You shouldn't watch it. I'm like, well, now I got to watch it. So then I had to watch it, and I ended
That's the selling point.
That's the selling point.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy.
You got me hooked.
So,
Brutal. Well, when you look at like some of the foreign market stuff, because there's one horror film in particular called High Tension. It's an Australian
Mhm.
film, and I absolutely love that horror film.
Actually, I think that one's French.
This is the French?
Yeah, it's all subtitled.
It is subtitled,
Yeah.
and I didn't see the twist coming.
it sounds really familiar.
I didn't see the setup, and if you haven't seen High Tension out there, you need to watch High Tension. It is probably by far one of the most odd horror films.
It's really good in its mood and tone that it
Yes.
sets up. And
And then you get the reveal.
well, the reveal kind of contradicts some of the things that happen.
Well, and like the opening scene for High Tension, it does completely contradict that.
There's also a car chase
There is
where they're escaping, and the car does some the car chasing them does some damage to the car, and it's like the only way that happens if there's another car
somebody
involved.
else driving the car.
Yeah. So, but it is good. We probably gave away way too much. But
But it is worth
yeah.
watching because there are a lot of independent films across the pond that are happening. High Tension by far. I was blown away. I was not expecting that particular reveal.
Is it messed up in the same way like Funny Games is messed up?
No.
No, not
No.
even
Funny
close.
Games
Messed up in a
is
totally
something.
different way.
Yeah, that can be a psychological thriller as well. That one is unnerving, in and of it by itself. And I enjoyed the original version and the remake. They're both done by the director. I think it's same director.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those rare instances where the director basically redoes his work for a different audience, and it's relatively consistent.
Mhm.
You see that also with some. There used to be, I don't see it often anymore, but there used to be the business approach of taking, especially with adapting Japanese films to American,
Like The Grudge.
and Ring.
Right.
Yeah, so the director of Ring You, the original Japanese,
Oh,
he directed the sequel to the American version. Gore Verbinski, I think, directed The Ring.
sounds right.
Yeah, so it was enjoyable. Ring You is disturbing.
There's
for
a
me.
scene I got to mention in Review that nobody with me caught
Okay.
and that they didn't do, where the person's at the hospital and you see this old man playing peekaboo and there's nobody there. As the door shut, just really briefly for 1 second in the reflection,
You catch the
the kid standing there playing peekaboo with him.
Oh my
But
God,
it's
that's
so fast.
That's
it's
unnerving.
miss it. And it's I love movies that don't just feed you everything. You have to be paying
You have to
attention.
be aware.
Well, and that's nice too when you go see a movie and it hooks you enough that it's like, yeah, I can see that again. And you sit down and see that again. Oh shoot, there's whole more new stuff. I also so two other examples, completely different contexts, but where I see a movie that I probably didn't really like or didn't really have any gravity or stick with me, and then I see it with somebody else, and it's just like, oh my gosh, with their perspective and their input or just their presence, it makes the film that much more engaging. So, what was it? Well, I keep bringing up and films that I've seen once, and I just flat out didn't like it.
Right.
And then a couple years later, I watch it again. So I keep bringing up Hereditary is one of those. And then also Wes Anderson's Royal Tenenbaums. First time I saw it, fucking hated it.
I own it, and I've only watched it the one time in the theater. I bought it thinking, maybe one day I'll watch this again.
Yeah. I watched it a few years later, and I was just like, what the fuck is wrong with me? Because like back then, I should have kicked myself, back then. But I absolutely enjoy it. I find those films, especially the compositions, really engaging. And
how Wes Anderson pictures life. I would want to just follow him in a day in the life, because how he shoots his films and how he envisions his character interactions, and it's just so intricate that it's just. It's poetry.
Saturday Night Live with a Wes Anderson does horror films. I don't know if you saw that. I think it's on YouTube if you look up Wes Anderson horror film.
Yeah. If you find that, send it. We'll post it.
That.
Yeah. The other thing too is like, see, we talk about Wes Anderson and how they frame stuff. There's also in art and horror genre too. You've got some filmmakers like David Lynch. Well, he's not flat out making horror films, but it has horror elements to it. And the way he frames the scene and sets up the mood and the tone. You're not always sometimes he's doing stuff that you're not going to get, or sometimes he's doing stuff just to be non-representational as well as abstract.
I wonder sometimes if we throw stuff in just randomly and lets the audience come up with a reason for it.
Yeah, I've seen a couple interviews where he's admitted to doing that, but for the most part he actually will sit down and have a meditation, and through the years that meditation has changed. I think at one point it might have actually been like shooting off a gun and having some whiskey, but I think for the most part now it's.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it's just having like a good shave and taking a bath.
Lost Highway.
Yes, that's one of my favorites.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I bring it up for a funny story.
Okay.
I went and saw it with my brother, and he loves David Lynch stuff. He loves Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
And I thought the soundtrack was pretty cool, and so he wanted to take me and buy the soundtrack right after the film, so I went and bought it.
Reznor, David Bowie, Rammstein.
You can't go wrong with that.
Yeah.
And we're buying it, and the cash register person says, "Oh, Marilyn Manson, I love him. Does he have a big part in the film?" And my brother and I started chuckling. I said, "Well, that depends."
Yeah.
So you have to see the film to get the joke.
Yeah. He has a part.
He has a part.
Yeah.
Actually, they just announced him in American Gods for
season 3. Yeah.
I was very surprised by that.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do
that was my go-to.
with horror, but I'm like, I have no idea.
Eros, maybe?
Maybe.
I
have no idea.
Maybe young Marilyn Manson, but not old fugly, Alice Cooper Marilyn Manson.
So when you guys are looking at the horror genre, and let's be honest, we are in a new golden age of horror.
Yeah.
We are riding a high right now. So when you're looking at the horror genre, are you looking for more slasher? Are you looking for more cliffhanger? Are you looking for more jump scares? Because the bar has been elevated so much over just the last couple of decades. Because when we were watching horror, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th, all of the slasher films of the age that defined the 80s were at its zenith. So now we have all of that to choose from, and now the psychological, the thrillers, especially when you're looking at like Us, and that elevating the horror feel to an entirely new level. Because when I watched that film, holy shit sticks! I walked out of that like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
That man is brilliant. Why does Twilight Zone suck?
Because it's a committee. That's not.
You know, and that's CBS, and that's another entirely different story. But when I walked out of Us, and it starts to soak in.
Yeah.
You walk away. So what are you guys as?
Get Out does the same thing too.
Yeah.
Get Out
I haven't
really
seen
did
the
it for
new-
me.
Yeah.
It's not entirely him. I think he produced it. It's the one that has like the time travel type thing where the guy gets to go back and try to save the person who gets shot. And I cannot remember the name now. But Peel is part of that. I can't remember now. And I just derailed that. But yeah, Get Out. And,
I like where you're going.
thank you.
I like how your brain's working.
The speed bump.
The
That's
psychological stuff has always been my favorite. I was desensitized at a really early age. I don't know how young you were when you saw your most traumatizing film, but I was 6 when my mom took the whole family to go see Jaws.
Okay.
As a 6-year-old watching Jaws, that broke something.
Yeah.
And my brother, who's 9 years older than me, I even brought a Fangora because I didn't know if we needed visual aids.
Oh, yeah.
He was huge in Fangora. My mom sewed Mary Kay. He would still her makeup
Where's
and
your
teach me.
Fangora?
I'll pull it out.
Yeah.
I mean,
pull that Fangora
pull that out. 'Cause
out.
I mean, I'm thinking like early on, like
Oh, my.
horror.
Yeah.
You're getting me, Blair.
Yeah. For those of you who do not know Fangora Magazine, that is a long-standing publication that's gone through a few revisions of recent age, but definitely find it and look into it.
Dan on the cover, who is no longer with us.
It's just a few years old.
Yeah.
You know, a few years,
I've got-
but at least half a generation.
He would practice his horror makeup effects on me with the bullet wounds, and so of course my mom would come home and see her 7-year-old kid with a giant bullet wound. In his
Oh
head.
yeah, she reacted very well.
do to your brother?
I made him faster. Now Eric can just
Aerodynamic.
instead of going around him, he goes through him.
Made him
now.
open-minded.
Like
Yes. Oh, I never thought of it. I just thought he flat out killed your brother.
Yeah.
No, we were doing experiments. That's how it goes.
Knowing how all of that was done at such a young
Yeah.
age, horror films didn't affect me because I'm like, oh, that's Carol Stewart.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's
Well,
so
even when you're watching like Nightmare on Elm Street, and Johnny Depp gets dragged up along the wall and
Good.
bled out, and I'm like,
Yeah.
congratulations, Wes Anderson, do it again.
Yeah.
Back then, you didn't hate him as much as you do now.
Yeah.
So, you didn't
But when
realize-
you're watching that, yes, you get to that level of desensitization where you're like, okay,
thinking about how the room's rotating and the
Yeah.
camera's standing
Yeah.
still, and
Yeah, the behind the scenes, the practicals on that, and how they figured a lot of that stuff up goes on to inform a lot of the bigger blockbusters of today too, because those were the stomping grounds for some of that stuff. Nobody else had that in the script. The big
No.
budget action films that were just now starting to curb into the B movie genres and stuff. They weren't playing around with that as much as the horror films. And speaking of which, too, that did some of that also inform, because you're a filmmaker
yes,
as well. That's how you and I kind of connected, was your background in martial arts and filmmaking.
Yes.
Because you guys were doing some shorts and were you able to take some of that knowledge of makeup and everything and apply it?
Yes, I've never done a horror film, which is funny because I have a whole bunch of ideas of ones to do. I just never got around to it. But when I made the samurai film, I went for the whole Tarantino effect with the blood pumps and spraying blood everywhere.
Nice.
And it's like, no, it's only 5 feet high. I need to go 20 feet high. And so I got the big paint sticks to pump.
How Seventh Samurai.
Exactly. No, you have to be under 500 psi. And pump the blood everywhere.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
But it definitely comes from a background of that because, like the Friday the 13th movies, the blood always sprayed ridiculous amounts. And loving samurai films, I've seen that before.
Yeah.
And so to me, it wasn't horrific to see it; it was more laughable.
Yeah.
But I would have to say the thing that I found that I wish they would have done a better job with was the Silent Hill movies. I don't know if you ever played the
I remember
original.
the first one.
Yeah.
I never saw the
The
sequel.
phone scene in the video game.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the phone, try to interact with the phone, it doesn't work. You continue to look through the rest of the room, then when you try to leave, the phone rings. When you pick it up, you hear your daughter's voice, who you're looking for, goes, "Daddy, help me, he's hurting me." That sent shivers down my spine for a video game. No movie has done that. And when they made the movie just dropped all of that
But the
psychological
problem is,
aspect.
though, when you're looking at like the horror in any kind of video game that they've tried to bring to movies, they've fallen
Super Mario Brothers.
So short.
Okay, so short.
Yeah.
Super Mario Brothers is a classic. Screw you.
Okay.
Bob Hoskins is a genius.
Here's the exception of the rule.
That is the exception of the rule, just only because Dennis Hopper is King Koopa.
He should have played the Dennis Hooper from Blue Velvet as Cooper.
No, Apocalypse Now. Screw that. I want to see him just completely off his egg. But
I think both films he was off his edge.
Oh, he was
just in
completely off his
different
edge,
directions.
one was sober, one was
Daddy wants to see.
John Wayne was on.
Stop looking at me.
Stop looking at me.
Stop looking at me, Mario.
I mean, most of the time, yes, they've fallen so short of the mark, and I don't think Silent Hill or even like the Resident Evils, because you've got that. I don't even know what the hell they even call that anymore.
Action horror. Wire horror food.
It's
Wire
fan.
horror food. Yeah.
It's fan service with cables at this point,
Right?
Because you have Mila Jovovich, who is brilliant, beautiful, and talented. And we're just going to suspend her from the ceiling and scream some obscenities, show her boobies, and shoot some bullets.
Sure. Yeah. It comes with the script.
Comes with the script.
It's a horror
If it
movie.
involves
Whatever.
a steady paycheck, I'm willing to believe anything you want.
Yeah. Going back to I think that's more at this point. It might have started out with the idea of a horror film. I'm not referencing the video game at all. But and then it just kind of transitioned more into action heavy and horror. The horror aspects became the mode.
Right. The game is a hell of a lot more terrifying than the film ever will be.
Stephen King's Room 1408.
Okay.
Was actually a better version of Silent Hill, the video game, than Silent Hill, the movie.
and in fact, that whole the short story is great, but what John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson do with that film is tremendous, and it is amazing. And John Cusack, I think it's probably one of his better horror performances, next to the one where with all the multiple personalities.
Identity.
Thank you. Those two films for Cusack, in my mind, Cusack's the man, regardless. But when you Better Off Dead. Where's my $2? Yeah. Love that.
Someone threw away a perfectly good white boy.
But when you see him in those films, I mean, and Grosse Point Blank is in my top 5 films all time.
That's a really good film.
All time. But when you see the performance that he puts forth in both of those films, it's absolutely just nail biting. And that's the horror that I want. I want shocks, I want thrills, I don't want the jump scares necessarily, but I want to walk out of there feeling creepy. When you look at like what the Godfathers of horror have done, Christopher Lee, Vincent Price, I can't think of his name all of a sudden.
Peter Cushing.
Thank you.
Boris
Karloff. I was thinking Grand Moff Tarkin for some strange reason. So
Same
guy.
That's what anybody in this room's
exactly. So when you think of after you watched one of their films or one of their shows on TV, you were sitting there scratching your head like, I'm creeped the fuck out. I don't want to. They're the reason you don't want to go down in the basement. They're the reason you dread the attic.
Yeah.
They are the embodiment of horror.
Casting him in Arsenic in Our Base was just
amazing. You're like, oh my god, this is brilliant.
Films today, even back then when we were growing up, they essentially were, that story that you told, by the fire before bed, that cautionary tale. Don't do this because, this will happen. And so films do that very, very well. Yeah, and then back to like video games, it's very hard to translate something that works so well in one medium and translate it into something completely different.
I think I might have put my finger on it too. The thing that A lot
Was
of
it a
horror
hole?
movies drop. Yes, several holes. We won't go there.
Is that a bullet hole where the knife went in? Let me
plug you. No, you're not bleeding.
Sex totally fine. Is not caring about the characters. Slasher films get in, you're like, well, we don't care if they die, so now it's
Well, you're waiting.
Well,
You got a scorecard. All right, black guy gone.
yeah.
Hooker
Yeah.
chick gone. Sport guy gone. Oh wait, back. Gone again. Nerd dude lost a limb. But it makes it. You know.
Well, when you're making a video game, it's now you, so of course you're going to care about you.
Yeah.
So you now have that
That makes
connection in the horror story that you don't have with a lot of movies.
Is it specifically if it's like a first shooter or you're playing a character that you can
If it's-
see
if it's-
projected on the screen?
For me, I like the projected one, because I get what they call DIMS, doom-induced motion sickness, because the video game.
Oh, I see.
So if it's first-person perspective,
yeah.
but if it's
Yeah.
third person, it works better for me. But it just has to be well written, really.
Yeah.
And then in fact, I think it was either Silent Hill 2 or 3 where your character has amnesia, so the story's unraveling and you're trying to figure out who you are as you
Yeah.
play the game.
Interesting.
But it's there's a lot of great video games in the horror survival genre that aren't all about running around and shooting monsters.
Yeah.
In fact, one they now do stuff with the controllers where it has a motion detector, and you have to hold it in perfectly still while the monster's creeping around you.
Oh,
I
okay.
forget what game system that was for, but I think it's called Until Dawn
Ugh.
or something.
Oh
That
yes.
sounds like
Oh yes. So it's a PC game, and you're fighting to stay alive.
Yeah.
So you have to start a generator to get the lights going, and you've got a guy that's stalking you who will come and hang you on hooks.
Nice.
It is
Wow.
a brilliant game, and I love it.
Yeah. Oh, Dan's beef jerky. Let you dry out a little bit. You smoke in a little mesquite. Bill, you want mesquite?
I'm down for some.
All right, a little bit of mesquite.
But no, that Dead by Dawn is a great game, and I love it. There's also the Jason, the Friday the 13th game that you can play, where you're at Camp Crystal Lake and you're running around, and Jason is hunting you. There are some great horror games
Yeah.
out there to play. It's just trying to find someone to play them with you.
Yeah. Typically, if I'm playing video games, it's at the arcade.
Yeah.
You know, I got time to kill. I don't, because I'm nowhere. You guys submerge yourselves in pop culture. Comics, films, video games. So I have
Get with it, Dan.
Right. I know. See, you guys should invite me over.
Yes.
Because I'm a vampire, and that's the only way I can come over to your house.
Oh.
Dun dun dun.
If the house is being
Great
mortgaged, do you
segue.
have to go to the bank and get permission to come into the bank?
That's why
It's
it goes
not
to
a
the
house.
director. Yeah.
It's a
Oh,
public
It's a public-
space. Yeah.
public space.
You still
Yeah.
if there's a welcome mat, that should be good enough, right?
Yeah. You'd think. And it's like, oh, why am I burning? Yeah, sprayed some garlic. They knew I was coming. Oh, those kids.
You vile bastards.
So,
Favorite vampire film?
favorite vampire film? Let the right one in.
The original, not the remake.
The original.
Yes.
I thought the remake was good for what it was, but I thought the original was much more engaging. The reason being was I thought it played out as a very good drama.
Yes.
That little girl is so creepy.
Have you read the book?
Yeah. No, I have so.
I've read the comic.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh,
I haven't read the
interesting.
comic.
I've
Yeah,
never
there's a
read that.
comic. Yeah.
Oh,
Between
Dark
the,
Horse did it.
between the book and the first movie,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of a difference.
yeah.
Then between the first movie and the remake, there's a little bit of a difference, but it makes it a big difference. So by the time you get to the American version, you just do not get the clues as to something that's going on with the background and the history with the female.
Okay. Nice.
And I'm not going to spoil anything, but
Yeah.
just, I definitely recommend seeing the original movie or
Yeah.
reading the book before you see the American version. Or if you have seen the American version, go back and catch it.
Nice.
Mine's Near Dark.
That is
Or
stellar. That's definitely my favorite Catherine Bigelow film. Certainly, my favorite Lance Henriksen and,
Oh, yeah.
and Bill Paxton.
Let's bring in
Yeah.
all the aliens actors.
Yeah, pretty much, right? It makes sense because later on, Catherine married James Cameron. And those actors, of course, it's like I recommend these guys. Why? Because they can fucking act.
They show up on time and they
Yeah.
can deliver a line.
Yeah, and again, so that's a nice segue. So you got Near Dark, which is kind of a gothic, brutal vampire film. Yeah, I would say that's probably in my top 3 favorite vampire movies. just because it's just so scaled down, except for the trope where they are allergic to sunlight.
Mine is a tie.
Okay.
Ooh. Is one of them Lost Boys?
It absolutely is.
Oh, interesting.
First one is Lost Boys. Second is 30 Days of Nights. The first one, because what they translated from...
I forgot there was a second one, right?
Yeah, there's a couple of them, yes. It went directly to DVD. And what Steve Niles did with the first 30 Days of Night and the whole Alaskan...
The comic book.
Yes.
Yeah.
And how they pulled all of that out and brought everything.
Yeah.
I mean, the vampires are brilliant.
Yeah.
It's perpetual night. You don't have to worry about the sunlight coming up, and they just devour this Alaskan. Oh my God! It is like going to Sweet Tomatoes when the blue hairs descend. The bus is unloaded. The walkers are out.
Yeah.
Here we come, and they devour this town.
Yeah.
It is brilliantly done.
Yeah, I absolutely enjoyed the comic. I thought the movie was good. It just didn't, to me, it didn't have as much weight as the comic book. It didn't stick with me.
It didn't stick, and that's the. I don't want to say the short-sightedness or how they produced it, but the story that they told was so tightly packed.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of it, we have a conclusion.
Yeah.
It was beginning, middle, end. And that story, at its end, it was its peak. You're not coming out of that. And then when we try to push it some more, and I've spoken to Steve about it, and he feels bad because he's like, there's so much more story to tell, and the comic has continued on. Yeah. Let's make no mistake of that. 30 Days has continued on.
It's one of those that would do well if Netflix or a streaming service.
You know what? If they pick that up as a series, that would be brilliant. It'd be better than Castlevania.
What? Oh, as an animation?
It could be an animation.
It could be an animation, but even if it's a series, absolutely.
Specifically with the artist's style from the original comic book. Absolutely, I would love to see that kind of stylization animated.
Yes.
I think one of the things, and I could see it, continuous. But I think one of the cautionary tales is the success of The Walking Dead, where the comic book is fantastic. It's a really good drama, but I would the criticism I have of the comic is more profound and more focused on the TV series,
right?
Where it's nobody learns anything, same dramatic stories, same mistakes, constantly, and then when you see the TV series, it's the writing's not as strong, and it's even more of that.
And it depends on the season, because when Kirkman came back into the writer's room for The Walking Dead, you can definitely feel the shift.
2 days ago?
No, he's
I'm sorry.
Unfortunately.
I'm not really. Yeah.
Kirkman coming back into the writer's room a couple seasons ago, you can tell the definite swing, and is really disheartening. With the comic book finally coming to its end,
it's already done. Right?
It's done.
Yeah.
And the curveball that Kirkman threw everybody. Nobody knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Not even the retailers, because the retailers order 2 months in advance.
Yeah.
So they're still looking at their order form, and they're still seeing comics 2 months.
Okay.
So they had no clue.
Yeah.
And they had biopsies. They had the whole spiel. So it's business as usual.
That's how we should actually in the series.
You should.
They have the end of the actual story, and then the following issue is like I went to go order it, but the comic book store guy is just like there's nothing there.
So
and it's like
it's so
the story
Monty
goes into a different direction. It breaks
the animator suddenly died of a heart attack in the monster.
It goes totally Monty Python. It goes totally Blazing Saddles.
Totally.
Then I pick it up again.
Yeah, pick it up again. But
for 2 issues, because I have a short attention span. Don't go past that.
Is it a trade paperback? Yeah.
It's 2 issues.
Well, so you got that whole disconnect when it comes to The Walking Dead and that whole monstrosity that Kirkman has has created. He's put one foot in, one foot out, and that its own monster.
The interesting thing with that is because I got into the comic before the show.
Right.
And the first bits where they started to change, it was like a purist thing. I was like, how dare they change these things? Who's this character? And then I started, wait a minute, this is cool because now I don't know if they're going to live or die.
Right.
Because they broke away from the comic. And I wouldn't have that if they were just doing a straight remake because I would know everything that's going to happen.
Well,
Yeah.
And that's
I think that does make it a little bit more exciting and a little bit more accessible.
But then eventually it does, like you said, the writing is bad and there's a committee as opposed to the comic book.
Mm-hmm.
Fear the Walking Dead this season actually got good.
Well, yeah, it's because they took all the characters from Walking Dead and pulled them over, and actually got decent writers.
So it's, but it's.
Not that I have an opinion,
but at the same time, so you've got that whole world building aspect that Robert created back in 2003, and if anything, quality aside, the fact that it just keeps building and building and building. It's remarkable. I would hazard. I wouldn't really argue because I'm hoping I'm wrong, but it's probably the closest thing to aside from Harry Potter, that thing of lightning striking, building that integral world that connects culturally, almost like Star Wars did back in the 70s and 80s. Now, Harry Potter certainly did that to a point. Maybe not with our generation, but certainly with the next generation. And I think for horror enthusiasts, that certainly was The Walking Dead.
If I was, and we've talked about this actually on my podcast, where if we were to say if there was something that was required for literary class, there's something that must be taught, it is The Walking Dead.
Okay.
Simply because of the tragedy, the development of characters, it's Beowulf.
Yeah.
It really is a modern day Beowulf, and regrettably, the characters that are in the TV show Kirkman didn't create. So the ones that are fan favorites, Kirkman had no hand in. They developed naturally, as things should.
Like cancer.
And cancer. Shit, my leg just fell off. And you're like, oh my god. You're looking at it from the standpoint of the spectator, and everything was orchestrated so interestingly in the comic, but when it went to the screen, it took on a life of its own.
Yeah.
And then when Kirkman got in there and tried to wrestle it and tried to I'm going to take control of this, you killed it. Sorry, you killed it. It's dead.
Yeah.
You lost Rick. Michonne's ready to go. All of the crucial characters, all of this, you're repeating again, like you said, the same story over and over and over again. Why didn't you learn this the first 5 times, you dumb son of a bitch?
It becomes a soap opera.
It does.
There was a comic strip several years back, critique about the comic, not the show, because the show stopped following the comic. It was like the formula for Walking Dead. Rick encounters bad guys, Rick loses a body part, Rick solves the problem, next episode. Rick encounters bad guys, Rick loses a body part, encounters bad. It's like every big block, he loses a body part.
And eventually you're working your way down to the cock.
Right.
And
it's
not
the
going to
hat,
do your penis push-ups.
You can't do your penis push-ups.
an eye patch. There are things
I will do that later.
things in the comic for me that to me were so essential to showing how horrible society had become. They just didn't put in the show because I knew if they put it in the show, it was like what happened originally in the comic to his wife and his child.
Yeah,
is not what happened in the show.
No.
Yeah,
not even close.
Not even close. And
we didn't in the comic. We never even had a little girl.
No,
she didn't even make the turn.
She didn't
make it out of the prison. Done.
Close.
So close.
What happened between Michonne and the mayor was so much more intense and disturbing in the comic book than what was in the show. I understand why, because it's AMC and they can only get away with so much, but they could have not shown it and said that these
sure, could have been something that happened off camera.
But the comic book was always, the zombies are nothing. This is the problem that people become.
Yeah.
And it took them like 5 or 6 seasons to get to how far. Finally, the zombies aren't the problem; it's the people.
Yeah.
We're The Walking Dead.
Yeah, my association with zombies is like they're the new lions and tigers. Once you know how to deal with them, not so many people get picked off. You know to keep away. You know how you know their characteristics. First season and a little bit in the comic book, from the get-go, where the skins, yes, you have their sense, you're fine.
But when you're dealing with vampires and
Different story.
and
You start wearing the vampire skins?
the romanticism of vampires and vampirism and
Are we going to Twilight? Is that where this is going?
no,
Oh,
when
okay.
you look at even like the earlier years, Love at First Bite,
Yeah.
which is one of my all-time favorite films.
Silver bullets are for purple.
Exactly. Nobody gets any of my references because I don't think anyone has ever watched this film, but it is absolutely
He's
brilliant.
married, but have you guys thought about dating?
His boobs aren't big enough.
Oh, I hide them very well. I'm
Tape.
wearing a sports bra.
But I mean, the romanticism behind vampirism and all of that is you can't get away from it. And that's the allure. Even Vampire in Brooklyn, when you're dealing with like that whole scene with Eddie Murphy, I mean, he whips the entire room around. I mean, it is the facade. That the projection of what you want, your heart's desire, the evil is right under the surface. You don't have to go far, and that's always the allure of the vampire.
For freshly turned vampires that are less than 10 years into their vampirism,
yeah,
I get that. But for a vampire, it's almost like, hey, you're dating a cow. That's the thing you eat.
Yes,
That's food. Why are you playing with your food?
Why wouldn't you? Because cats play with their food all the time.
Not in that way.
Yeah, Jim Jarmusch put out a vampire drama called Only Lovers Left Alive.
Okay.
And it's with was it Tom Hiddleston? Loki.
Oh, Tom Hiddleston.
Hiddleston. Okay, sorry.
You'll be at New York Comic Con next week.
And then Tilda Swinton. And they're these century-old vampires that have seen everything and done everything. And all, Tom's character wants to do is he's constantly contemplating suicide. And he even had a stint as a very popular goth rock superstar. And of course, since he's not
of him.
Yeah, since he doesn't age, he's like, well, I gotta go
sooner or later
away.
Yeah.
When are we gonna get more vampire that's like Weird Al?
Oh, we already do.
Really?
It's called Weird Al.
Oh, okay.
It's true. He doesn't age.
He does not age.
That's
the
awesome.
only thing that happens is his hair gets longer.
Well, that's his immortality is the length of his hair.
All right.
So Tom Hiddleston. Sorry.
Yeah.
Hiddleston, probably.
So anyway, it seems like it should be romanticized. Absolutely not. They're just it's like all the headaches of being eternal lovers and are vampires, and it's just like the magic has been gone for centuries. But you still got like Tilda's sister, who's also a vampire. Also centuries old, not near,
not nearly as old.
No, definitely close because you're off by a few years of your sisters, but it still operates as though she's an adolescent, and it's just like you're fucking 400 or 500 years old. Get it to fucking together. Stop killing our friends to our outside world.
You're not in your 20s.
I was gonna say,
you're in your 200s.
If you're turned into a vampire before your brain is matured, does your brain ever mature?
No,
or do you stay in that?
Yeah, true.
It depends on the writer.
That actually is a rather Lestat kind of question.
As we saw in Near Dark, that was a point of frustration for the kid.
Yeah,
because he was very old and he was stuck in a kid's body.
He was the oldest one in that group.
Yeah.
And even Lance Henriksen, who is eternally, I think he came out old.
Yes. Frank Black, as far as I always remember.
Would always refer to the kid as, hey, old man.
Hey, old man.
It's like, what the fuck's old man doing?
Kid's
8.
Have you kept up with the comic book or the TV show Preacher?
I enjoyed the comic book. I've never been able to finish it, but
It does have an ending.
I went through the first 3 seasons of Preacher. I thought it was, for me that's a lot more fun because it is just bonkers. As a TV show, it is absolutely
That's another one that's
nuts.
changed a lot from the comic,
Correct.
but it's still fun.
It's still so fun.
Because it was Garth Ennis that
Yeah,
did the original Preacher series.
Yeah.
he's one of my favorite comic writers, by the way.
Steve
Did
Dillon.
The Boys, which is also
Which,
now.
The
Yeah.
Boys is stellar, again, for another podcast. But when you look at what they've done for the Preacher for AMC, it is a complete departure of the comic.
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
I mean, it is really, what the fuck did I just...
It's another one of those where they could not do the comic
No.
because it goes
Stuff.
100 times further
Yeah.
south than that show. But
Yeah.
but Cassidy, the vampire in
Mhm.
the comic, is extremely short, not muscular at all,
Yeah.
but is super ferocious and strong because he's a vampire.
Yeah.
And he's gotten bored of everything, so now he does hard drugs and drinks a lot because he's always looking for that.
It's like
He's
tattoo on
depressed.
steroids.
Yeah.
And then they cast the fella from the TV show Misfits to be Cassidy, who's really tall.
Yeah.
Looks very different than Cassidy, but he does a great job playing him.
See, I thought visually the actor and aside from height, actually looks very close to
Right.
Cassidy in the comics.
Mm.
But regardless, that's another one that also blends a lot of, because it's not straight horror,
No.
it's not straight comedy. It's actually more of an action film.
And the show is. The
Yeah.
book is definitely a lot more horror.
More horror
goes on
related.
with it,
Yeah,
than
more
the
tropes.
voodoo that's going
Yeah.
on behind the scenes.
Yeah. So we're actually almost about to.
Sorry
This
about
has
that.
actually been really fun because I get to geek out with you guys.
Yeah.
And the two of you are incredibly versed.
Geek Twin Powers after
Yeah,
8.
that's right.
We
I
are very
love the Wonder
knowledgeable.
Twins who look nothing alike.
Nothing, so what? You're going in the bucket, bitch.
Yeah.
Oh, it's my week in the bucket.
Yeah, but we can. And we didn't even get to touch on like some of the horror that is coming to television
No.
and what they have planned for.
We're gonna have to do this again.
And
Part 2.
So much.
But two.
Oh,
I think
This time it's personal.
Yeah, this is, we'll do it in the bathroom.
We will get on the pointy end.
Oh yeah, get on the pointy end.
Get on
Huh?
the pointy end. Part 2, the pointy end.
The pointy end. Yeah, what is it? I guess that's the weapon of choice.
There,
Yeah, this is 2
I
by
don't
4
want to bludgeon
special
them.
at
I
the end.
want to just.
I just want to. It's like, hey, that's
Yeah.
my seat.
That's what you get
Get the fuck out.
out.
So anyway, to close up, where can people find you?
You can follow me on 5280 Geek for Facebook, for Instagram, for Twitter. You can also send me. I will respond to friend requests. Daniel Smurf Sharner, which I don't put up there very often,
Yeah.
but I will be more than happy to interject, intertwine, and enlighten any way that I can.
Did you hear that? That's code for he is very lonely and needs companionship. I offered up Troy, but
Somebody love me.
Troy was wise enough to decline that. His own
And,
matters.
and we will be doing different conventions. I will be making an appearance at the Rocky Mountain Con with Tim coming up in October. The All Seas Fan in November. The All Sea Fan Expo in October that I will be in, which is the second week. I will be there as well, doing panels and interviewing Victor Cook, who did Gargoyles,
Nice.
Stark Duck. Greg will also be there.
Excellent. Love Greg.
Greg is such a
Greg Guler.
such a fun fucking guy. Greg is amazing. So we will have
I
both
think
of
that's
those
his
guys.
middle name. Fun
Fucking
fucking
guy
guy.
Guler.
Big Fun fucking guy Guler. Disney will love that.
Yeah, Disney's gonna love that all the fucking hell. Fuck you guys. So the mouse is gonna come in later and
Awesome.
whip us with his tail. So I will be at those two cons. New York Comic Con coming up, of course, and we will be covering that extensively. So
And your website?
5280geek.com.
Excellent.
5280geek.com. Really, this is just coffee.
Not at all.
Not even close.
Not even close.
What about you? You
Yes,
are the
right.
man about town. And you know
Am
what?
I?
I love your team. You guys,
glad someone
you guys
does.
cracked me up because we did the Eastman and the Ken Eastman interview last year for Denver Comic Con. You guys were sitting there right behind us, and we just had one of the best times. You guys are amazing. If people are not following this man, fuck you. You don't know what's going on.
I'm paranoid, so I assume everyone's following you. So.
Tinfoil has them all.
Yeah.
All right, that's right. So how do they find you?
You can look us up on Facebook at RockyMountainGeekTank.com. Also, our webpage is www.RockyMountainGeekTank.com. All of our links are there on Facebook, and you can search for us. All of our shows are archived, and I think we have a YouTube presence too, but I haven't been there for a while.
Ooh.
I think you just also search
Schmancy.
RockyMountainGeekTank.com. And then you can.
Are you like half naked eating a cheeseburger drunk off your ass?
If I am, I don't remember, but it could be true.
You guys have been stealing my scripts.
Yes. If you're at a convention, if
I
you
was
see,
looking at your notes.
if you see the green jersey, that's us. I think we're going to be at Rocky Mountain Con too.
Rocky Mountain Con will be
I haven't,
in the show.
Touch base with my
You
team
guys need to
yet.
do some shows together. Like
We
some
actually, if you come and find us at Rocky Mountain Con, we will have an Infinity Gem hunt.
Oh, cool.
I'm going to
So-
look for the one that's actually inside Natalie Portman. That was the red one.
Is that the deep?
I want to know how, because I recently saw in-game, because I'm way behind the thing, but he had to go put the stones back, spoiler alert.
Yes.
How did he put it back in Natalie Portman?
All he did is shoot it in the ass.
Was
They did it
Thor
off
okay
camera.
with that? Was he all right with that?
He was
Thor was fucking.
he was busy
drunk off
with
his
donuts.
ass.
He didn't give a shit.
Oh, well, maybe that's
Bear Claw.
how she also becomes the mighty Thor.
Yeah.
In Love and Thunder.
Yeah.
She uses it for her own purposes.
I'm in now. I'll go see that.
Thank you for injecting me with vitamins, Captain America.
Mile High Con, you can find some Mile High Con, and I believe Hexacon next year, which is a big gaming convention. We're going to try to have our some games set up so you can come play games with us at our table at Hexacon.
Oh, that's kind of a fun.
That's
time.
my favorite geekdom is board games and stuff.
Tabletop is really understated
Yeah.
and needs to be more
And
present.
Zombie Side is a great cooperative game where everybody's trying to fight zombies and stay alive.
All right,
It's a
cool.
lot of fun.
So you going off solo is completely unacceptable.
You could, but everyone's going to hate you.
You asshole!
Someone had to open the door to chase the dog to let the zombies in.
I just wanted to not have to smell dog shit. That's all.
Too late.
Broadway.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. For
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So what do we have to look forward to?
With COFOH?
Yes, please.
Excellent. So for those of you and me who have forgotten what COFOH is, it's the Colorado Festival of Horror. We're getting ready for our first year event next year, September 11th through the 13th, 2020. We're going to be at the Embassy Suites, where Rocky Mountain Con is currently.
With Tim.
Yeah,
Tim's
with
over there
Tim.
and everything.
Yeah, and that's over on Havana
and I-70.
Yeah, here in Denver. For those of us who are out of town. Wow.
So that is in Aurora, Colorado.
Yeah, that is in Aurora, Colorado.
It is within a cat's toss of DIA.
Yep.
So if you wanted to book your hotel now, we would recommend it because not only will you get your enticing thirst for horror, but you will also get cosplay. The Colorado Ghostbusters are going to be there. You will have us. You'll have this sexy.
So,
motherfucker.
Smurf, when did you start organizing our event? This is new. So, if you go to our website, which is COFOHhorror.com, my understanding is we have none of that information.
You don't. I'm just leaking it out there.
I know this. I will have to get a mop.
You will.
Now, the question is he correct or is he just making it all up?
It's pretty much he's speaking all of that. Yeah.
Colorado Ghostbusters
Yeah.
will be there.
Yeah.
And what better year? I mean, 2020,
Mhm.
the new Ghostbusters film.
Yeah.
You will have you will have your own cache of Ghostbusters.
Cachet.
Yeah, cache.
Yeah. I was like, wow, they come in dollar form, huh?
Yes, they do.
I was like, I got a fake man, must be $1.
No. That's a $20 motherfucker.
Oh, is that a 20? So anyway, we're in the middle of organizing this. Make sure to follow us on Facebook. Obviously, if you're watching this, you already are, pretty much. We're on
We have
Twitter, we're on
questions.
Instagram. incidentally, as of today, we're also on YouTube. So we'll be connecting with Geek Tank and 5280 Geek in whatever form they take.
Wow.
And when I say they, it's Smurf.
It's me. But I'm a teen.
I know.
You've seen Red.
I've seen your village.
You have. You do not want to unleash the village.
No, I've seen your Smurfette. Yeah. Yeah, I saw that episode of the Smurfs, where Smurfette actually came from. Gargamel.
Gargamel's sex toy. It's so dark.
That is a dark.
It's really dark.
Those Saturday morning cartoons.
So, do you have another guest lined up for your next podcast?
The next guest is going to be the third Wednesday in October. I think that's the 18th. 18th, 17th, 16th?
16th October.
Okay, 16th of October. And that's going to be the Enigma. I'm also gearing up to meet up with Distortions Unlimited and Greeley and the organizers of Monster Day out there.
Ed is amazing. I did a tour of his facility up in Greeley, and Ed is just that man. If there is one person that I can label as mad scientist,
yep,
that motherfucker is it.
Yeah, I grew up with Distortions, so they started out in Kersey where I was raised.
Yeah.
I was one of the little kids that was under age 8 that would go dumpster diving, and he actually had kicked me out a couple times. I had reminded him of that years ago, and he apologized.
I'm sorry.
And he's like, no, that's one of my endearing memories of like being scolded by you and kicked out when you were a young man, and you're not anymore.
And
You're still dumpster diving. Yeah.
And Ed does Dick Van Dyke's front yard.
Yep, he does
for Halloween.
There's an episode of Making Monsters on
Yes.
it. I think it's season 3. So Enigma and I incidentally were in season 1.
Very nice.
Because I do Distortions comics.
Yeah,
and
it is worth watching.
Yeah,
Dick Van Dyke is such a horror enthusiast.
he is.
And you would not expect that of him. And it is amazing.
He's in his mid-90s now, right?
Yeah, he
And
is.
he still does the home haunt.
Yep.
Which is amazing.
And he dances still. That man is as
I believe
limber
it. I believe it.
as he was in Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
You should have the whole chimney thing with skeletons popping up.
He does. He does.
He does.
Yeah, he really does. Yeah. Yeah, it's now he hires little children that can fit into this, But,
It's his great grandchildren doing it now.
Oh, okay. Great grandchildren hires indentured servitude. I know these terms. All right. Well, we're gonna have to wrap it up. Thanks so much, guys. Visit us at COFOHorror.com. Follow these guys. You can follow me, just not into a dark alley. Have a good night. And special thanks to Mutiny Cafe for having us back out again. Come to Mutiny Cafe on 2 South Broadway. Get their goddamn coffee. It'll keep you all night.
They can freeze coffee into ice
Revolution.
cubes, and they put the coffee ice cubes in the iced coffee. It's brilliant.
Get it to go. It's delicious.
That's not what's in his cup. Have a good night.